Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back. So there's never a dull day in the crypto market, is there? A lot has happened, so let's talk about it. So I'm sure you guys are all tired of hearing about this Elon versus Bitcoin debate on Twitter, and I promise I won't spend the entire video talking about it. However, I did just want to share some of my thoughts about all of this on the latest developments on some of the later tweets that Elon did after I posted the initial video. So if you haven't heard by now, this past weekend Elon was getting a lot of heat on Twitter about Bitcoin, and people were just trashing him over his decision to stop accepting Bitcoin as payment for Teslas. This honestly wasn't that big of a deal to me because I don't think, I wasn't planning on using Bitcoin to buy anything from Tesla either. And I don't think a lot of people were planning on using Bitcoin as payment anyways. But Elon decided to respond, and he said that Bitcoin is highly centralized, according to him, and he sourced a news article where a flood in Xinjiang province of China caused a massive drop in hashing power for Bitcoin, which, okay, fair, a lot of Bitcoin mining does happen in China, so he's not completely wrong there. But at the bottom, you can see that he's clearly getting a little flustered, and he said that, hey, crypto experts, ever heard of PayPal? It's possible, maybe, that I know more than you realize about how money works. So this is obviously in direct response to people on Twitter calling him stupid and saying how he doesn't understand how money works. And immediately after came the shocker, which is when Mr. Whale, Crypto Whale, responded on Twitter saying that Bitcoiners are going to slap themselves next quarter when they find out that Tesla dumped the rest of their Bitcoin holdings. With the amount of hate Elon Musk is getting, I wouldn't blame him. And Elon Musk responded with, "Indeed." So it's not entirely clear what he meant by "indeed," which sent the internet into a frenzy. So to me, when I first read it, it just sounded like more of a threat than a promise, if that makes sense. So I thought what he meant was, if you don't stop spamming me about this Bitcoin thing, then I'm going to dump all my Tesla Bitcoins. All right, so it sounded more like a threat to me, but this can also be interpreted as I have already sold all of Tesla's Bitcoins. So this obviously caused another huge drop in Bitcoin price, and he let this go on for an entire night before clarifying the next day that Tesla has not in fact sold any Bitcoins, as he posted as a response from this. So even now though, Bitcoin price remains suppressed compared to where it was before, but it's currently trading at 40,000-ish US dollars per coin versus around, I think it was like 55 or 56. It might have even hit like 57,000 US dollars before Elon tweeted anything. So yeah, it's quite a big drop since where it was from last week. So what do I think about the newest developments of all of this between Elon and Bitcoin? Well, first of all, I think this highlights the important problem in Bitcoin. And no, I'm not talking about the environmental concerns. So I think I already addressed the environmental concerns very detailedly in my last video. So I'll leave a link somewhere up here or somewhere down below. Be sure to watch that video if you want to see my response to Elon's criticisms about the environmental thing. I'm not going to talk about that in this video anymore, but the problem that I do want to address is I'm talking about the toxicity in the crypto community, okay? So I get that everyone is super passionate about Bitcoin, okay? So it's almost like a religion at this point, where it's gotten to the point where if somebody criticizes Bitcoin, all the Bitcoin maximalists, they would just go crazy and just call each other names, and that's not helpful, okay? So let me show you a response to a Bitcoin criticism that I think was well presented. So I've shown you how not to respond, right? Which is what the man named Peter McCormack tweeted to Elon, and just basically condescending, with a really condescending tone and calling him stupid and all of that, right? So I don't think that that was the best way to respond to Elon Musk's criticism, obviously. So let me show you a response to a Bitcoin criticism, which I think was well presented. And this was not to Elon Musk, but to Bill Maher, who had a 9-minute segment on one of his shows recently, who he criticized Bitcoin for the exact same reason that Elon Musk is criticizing it, i.e. environmental concerns. And this is what Anthony Pompliano had to say. So Anthony said, Bill, you seem like an open-minded guy, someone who seeks truth over narratives. Why don't we have a conversation about Bitcoin? Think you're missing some key information that would change your mind. So you see, this is not condescending, it's not attacking him. Obviously, I think maybe Bill Maher, maybe he just doesn't understand crypto, right? That's why I think that he's having the issues that he's having with the Bitcoin mining thing. And I do think that, if he was presented with all the facts, then he would change his mind. I've been watching Bill Maher for a long time, and he seems like a really open-minded guy, as Anthony suggested. But I do think that he has been fed some wrong information, and therefore he thinks that like he's super against crypto now. All right, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Bill Maher would ever take up Anthony on this offer, but it doesn't hurt to offer it, right? And also, it doesn't hurt to not be like a dick about it, right? Like a lot of people on Twitter when they were criticizing Elon, right? So you see, just politely say that you disagree, and again, calling each other names is not helpful and will only drive newcomers away from this space. And even Elon, I would argue, is a newcomer. So I don't doubt that he understands money, like he reminded us of how he founded PayPal. Like, I get that. But I have a feeling that he doesn't fully understand how crypto works, and that's a very small and subtle but very important difference. So all these people running these like banks and whatnot and companies that manage money, like Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway, Ray Dalio from Bridgewater, you don't think they understand how money works? They're like the world's top experts on how money works, right? Obviously they understand how money works, but do they understand crypto? And the answer is no. No, they don't, right? So Elon obviously understands a little bit more about crypto compared to, say, like a Warren Buffett or something, but I think that Elon is still learning too. And you know how I can tell? In a response to a Twitter post about Dogecoin, he said that ideally Dogecoin speeds up block time 10x, increases block size 10x, and drops fees 100x. Then it wins hands down. So people who have been in the crypto community for a long time would know that it's more complicated than that, right? Obviously, if it was that simple, if we could just 10x the block size and 10x the transaction time, and 100x the fee, 100x lower the fee, well then, we would have done it to Bitcoin already, right? So it's obviously more complicated than that, and we've actually had this debate already back in 2015, where a small group of the Bitcoin community wanted to do exactly these kind of improvements, right? Increase the block size to make Bitcoin faster, but this proposal was rejected, and that group split off to form what is now Bitcoin Cash, which, despite its name, is a completely different thing from Bitcoin now because they've gone two separate ways, and I think the market has chosen the original Bitcoin as the owner and not Bitcoin Cash, because Bitcoin Core is a lot more popular than Bitcoin Cash, right? So what are those problems though? The problem with increasing the block size and decreasing the block time, as Elon suggested, is that you would need a ton of storage space to handle all these extra data that's coming, right? So in order to run a node, you'll need a lot more storage, and that's going to be a lot harder to run a node. So this leads to centralization because only institutions would be able to run a node, which makes sense, right? Because think about it, if you're a consumer, you don't want to have to buy a hard drive every day in order to run like a Dogecoin node because the amount of data that's coming your way is too much, and if you want to keep a full copy of the blockchain, it's going to take up too much space, right? So increased block size with lower fees also opens up the blockchain to more spam attacks and just more funny business in general, because you have so much empty space that you have to fill, and you also just lower the transaction cost, so it's much cheaper to fill all that space with just random stuff. So yeah, you're gonna open yourself up to a lot more spam. So this is why that experts say that Elon's plan to upgrade Dogecoin won't really work, or if it did, Dogecoin will be so different than what it is now. It's just easier to make a new crypto, right? So think of this as upgrading a Ford Model T to a Tesla Model S, right? So at that point, maybe it's just easier for you to build a Model S from scratch rather than trying to upgrade a Ford Model T, right? So in my opinion, this whole Elon throwing his support over Doge, this doesn't make sense to me because Doge is still a proof of work blockchain at the end of the day. So if people really started to adopt Doge in droves, and Doge somehow became like more popular than Bitcoin or just as popular, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just say it did, well then it's going to run into the same problems as Bitcoin, right? So they're called scaling problems, right? So a lot more people would be using it, which means that it would congest the network, which means that the fees would skyrocket, right? So and energy consumption would skyrocket too. So yeah, you're back at square one essentially. So I don't think that Tesla's board of directors as well will approve of him switching the balance sheet from holding 10% or whatever it is in Bitcoin back to like 10% in Doge or something. So I think that it's already hard enough to convince any board to adopt Bitcoin in the first place, and I highly doubt any institution is going to approve of like their balance sheet being moved to Doge. And also, I think it would look bad if Tesla decided to sell out of all their Bitcoin and move back to cash, like what some people on the internet is talking about, and what Elon kind of like threatened to do, right? So I think that would be like bad for Tesla's reputation as well, because if you think about it, if they sell out of all their Bitcoin and move it back to cash, then that means that they don't really believe in it as a store of value. They just wanted to swing trade Bitcoin, right? Like, think about how that would look. You put $1.5 billion in it, the price went up, you sold out of it, and then you just made a bunch of profit, and like you didn't actually like wanted to use Bitcoin, you just wanted to speculate and trade it. And I don't think shareholders would take very kindly to that, because they're just like, hey Tesla, you're like an electric car company, your energy company, why are you day trading like cryptos, right? You should get back to doing what you're good at. But if they hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, then shareholders would understand, right? Oh, they're using it as a store of value for cash that they're not going to need immediately, right? That makes sense. But selling it and turning it back into cash, that doesn't make sense. So that's my point, right? So I don't think that Tesla should sell their Bitcoin. I mean, if you make Elon Musk angry, he might make an emotional decision, but if he did that, I think that would be really bad. So I wouldn't approve of that at all, but you know, anything could happen, but I just think it would be bad. Anyways, this brings us back to the crux of the issue, though, is that I think that Elon is still learning as he goes, and he just initially wanted a cryptocurrency that can do everything, right? So one ring to rule them all, so to speak. And unfortunately, that just doesn't exist. So he's finding out, at least when it comes to crypto, that there are no perfect solutions, that there are only trade-offs. So the trade-off for Bitcoin is that, as I said earlier, it's an extremely good store of value, but it sucks as a medium of exchange, right? So think of it as digital gold. So you wouldn't use gold to buy like a coffee or buy small things, right? You wouldn't necessarily even use gold to buy a car or buy a house, but that's okay, because that doesn't mean that gold is worthless, right? So you put your money into gold and it will retain its value. So that's what it's used for, and that's kind of what Bitcoin is used for as well. However, Elon wanted something that can do both store of value and medium of exchange really well, and that's just not how it works. So my point is that we should be more encouraging of people like Elon, who is trying to move the industry forward. You have to at least admit that he's succeeded in getting everyone to talk about Bitcoin, and it's not that Bitcoin depends on him to succeed anyways, right? Bitcoin will survive with or without Elon, so don't get me wrong, this is a fact, right? So Bitcoin will move forward no matter what, but why antagonize him, right? So antagonizing him just hurts both sides, in my opinion, and it's just not a good route to go down. For Bitcoin believers who feel attacked by Elon, I get it, but, you know, don't. I don't know what else to say, right? So if some negative tweet from some random billionaire just crashes Bitcoin completely and Bitcoin goes to zero because some billionaire tweeted some negative things about it, then quite frankly, it doesn't deserve to survive. And if you hadn't panic sold and if you believe in Bitcoin for the long term, well then you know what to do, right? Just keep hodling. And I'll leave the Elon story there. So hopefully I wouldn't have to talk about this again anytime soon. But I'm sure some of you needed some encouragement, and maybe some of you wanted to hear some of my thoughts on the latest development. So yeah, there you go. So I'm just going to leave it here and let's move on. So moving on though, I do want to talk about where Bitcoin is going in terms of price. So this is not financial advice, so please do your own research. But in my opinion, I think that this could be a good buying opportunity right now. So if we look at the stock to flow model, we see that typically prices top up when we're about 800 days away from the next halving. So just a reminder to those of you who forgot what that means. So every 4 years, the new supply of Bitcoin generated gets cut in half, right? The block reward gets cut in half. So effectively, the new supply gets cut in half as well. So with less supply and same or even greater demand, that drives price up. So as you can see, that we're not at the 800-day mark yet, as we're not, like, the line hasn't turned green yet, which is the color that they use on this particular website to represent the stock to flow when it's at like 800-ish day mark. So typically that's when the bull market hits its peak, when the line turns green. So keep in mind that this is also a logarithmic scale we're talking about. So we're talking about percentage increases here. So if you hear people talking about Bitcoin hitting 200K by the end of the year, according to the stock to flow, that seems entirely possible because we tend to overshoot the stock to flow estimate. This is stock to flow, and this is more of a long-term indicator. So another indicator I wanted to show you, though, is called the Mayer multiple. So this compares Bitcoin's price to its 200 moving day average. And as you can see right now, we're just at about 1, which means that we're sitting right on top of the 200 moving day average, which is the key support level from a technical standpoint. And there's a high likelihood of us bouncing back up from this support level because it's tend to be a really strong support. And if you look at the chart, you can see that that orange line, that represents a Mayer multiple of 2.4. So the reason why 2.4 is chosen is that, as you can see, the Mayer multiple doesn't really stay above 2.4 for too long, historically speaking. So if you exceed 2.4, that could be interpreted as a sell signal. So I've just given you a long-term indicator, i.e. the stock to flow model, and I've given you a short to medium-term indicator, i.e. the Mayer multiple, and they both look pretty bullish for me. Although, once again, anything could happen. This is not financial advice. Once again, please do your own research and make your own financial decisions. If you haven't realized by now, crypto is one of the most volatile things that you can invest in, right? So anything could happen, but personally, I'm averaging down on Bitcoin at the moment. And also, I'm looking at other altcoins as well. And there's so many altcoins out there. Honestly, guys, I need to do more research and spend more time doing more research on looking at different altcoins that are interesting before, rushing out to make a video or anything. So I really want to avoid making a video on something that I might have missed because I was rushing, or I don't want to make a video on something that I don't fully understand, right? So let me get back to you guys on the topic of altcoins. And for now, I'll just leave the video here. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing if you like this series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.